Hey, Kirsten. My name is Warkander, and I'm joined here by Kirsten Hinder, who is the co-founder of NfinityMark. And Kirsten, I would like to start with asking you a question about this acronym NFT, which of course we hear a lot about in the art world today, but I think many people are interested in, but maybe not so many know so much about. What is actually this NFT?
So the acronym stands for non-fungible token, which still doesn't mean much to most people because it's very unfamiliar territory unless you're really in the midst of that whole bubble. But it's basically a unique digital record of something that has a value. So there's inherent value in it, and it can be something that is valuable in itself, like as in the form of a digital artwork, or it can point to something physical and be valuable and unique in itself and point to something else that it's referencing.
And how is this value determined? Who determines it?
And the value is determined initially by the creator, and then as we've seen this spring, it's also been valued by the market and how it sort of receives different creators' work, especially in the case of digital art pieces that have been sold this spring. There's been a lot of hype surrounding that, but the value begins with the value that the creator places on it when it gets minted.
And what's your role at NfinityMark? I'm thinking both of your role and the role of your co-founder. How do you work with this phenomenon?
So as opposed to using NFTs to actually create digital artworks, we're using the same technology to create a more robust analog art world. So the technology has been very connected to this bubble and rise of digital artworks and explosive sales this spring in auction houses globally. But the technology can also be used to secure physical objects, identify them, and secure them. So our concept is to find a way to make immutable connection between physical objects and a digital record of them, which is a way of securing the identity of the object and the provenance, in our case, because it's artworks. So we've created a magic paint that we call Infinity Paint that has been engineered in a lab over the past couple of years. The paint contains a unique serial number. So when it's applied to the backside or underside of an artwork, it has the possibility of identifying that object physically and connecting it to an NFT, the digital record that has the same unique serial number. So the two become like sisters in a sense. So it's a way of breathing new life, I think, into the physical art world. I've worked for 10 years as a curator and in different both institutional and gallery contexts. And I also worked for 10 years before that. God, now I'm a dinosaur, but as a photographer. So I know how important it is to be able to protect the authorship of artworks and also to be able to identify them correctly and verify them. And from a collector's perspective, to be able to know that the work that you bought is the work that you think it is, and it's going to hold its value over time, which a digital identification of it with this system is a way to help that. Then it's also connected to blockchain, which is a possibility to make sure the record stays forever.
So it's really connected to matters of authenticity and authorship, but there must also be, I think, another reason why we see so much of this and why it's so prevalent now. And I'm also thinking of other digital developments that we've seen recently when it comes to Bitcoin and these kind of digital developments where we see this kind of interconnection that you're talking about between the analog and the digital.
Yes.
Is that also something which is connected to this?
It is. I think it's what will be interesting to see is all the hype that's come in the past 6 months. We don't really know where that's going to land. That's a very speculative side of things. And since that's not really our business, it's interesting to see where that lands, but it's not really something that we're placing bets on. For us, it's really the interest in, okay, these are fantastic new technologies. How can we use them to sustain things, either an artist's practice or a gallery's practice or a collector's collection? So how can we use them to make something more robust and long-lasting and secure it? I think the interesting thing with cryptocurrency is that some people are very opposed. Some people think it's super interesting and are in that speculative space, which I think is great. I think it's nice to have the option. So With our solution, you have basically what you have is your physical work that's been tagged. Then you have your digital record of it, which is the NFT, which points to the physical work. So you have these two items in your collection. Then when you transfer ownership of that artwork to a new owner, then that person basically takes over the physical work and the NFT, and the record gets updated over time so that the provenance is sort of like a living, breathing part of the artwork that's actually embedded in the artwork, which I think is very important because people sometimes underestimate the importance of, usually when you buy an artwork of any kind of value, you get a certificate of authenticity, which is very good, but a lot of people don't actually know that that is like an important thing to hang on to and know where to find when you want to sell the work or make an insurance claim. So by embedding that into the work and also educating people about how important it is to take care of these records, I think it's a good way to sort of move into the future. We're digitizing things anyway, so this is a progression that we're on. There's not really an off-ramp, so it's a way to like sustain that progression in a way that helps people rather than it being super speculative from our perspectives. But for people to be able to use either cryptocurrency or normal money to buy and sell or trade works, it's nice with options. Everyone's not going to jump on the crypto bandwagon, which we totally understand and respect, and everybody's not going to jump on the digital art bandwagon because people like me who love the tactility and want to have physical artworks hanging in their home. So we're trying to make sort of a hybrid solution that makes less of, it sort of blurs the border between the physical and the digital. So you don't have to be in one camp or the other. You can enjoy your physical collection and know that you're also getting the benefits of these new technologies to sort of bring your collection into the future.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's really about adding transparency to the process, and I can see how this would be very relevant to art collectors.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking of, for example, the benefits for artists or for galleries. Is that also something which it can be beneficial for them?
Definitely. So for artists, the benefit is, for an artist who creates a work, many artists say after 2 years, they've sort of lost track. They don't know what happened to that work. Maybe it got sold, maybe it's still at the gallery, maybe it's out there somewhere with a collector, but they don't really know. So this is a possibility for artists to actually see where their works go, not specifically connected to a collector, because it's, of course, important for collectors to be able to choose to be anonymous in this chain, this record, but in order for artists to be able to see, okay, my work was sold and now it's in this part of the world, get sort of an overview of there, because that's an autonomy that I think a lot of artists have not had, historically speaking. They're sort of reliant on, the gallerist informing them all the time. And I know, because I've worked as a gallerist, that it's not easy to keep up with always informing the artist. So it's like a chain of command that sometimes breaks, and it's good for the artist to be able to have that information, and also for artists to be able to ensure that this digital signature is preventing any possibility to forge their work is super important. So many artists say, somebody's copied my work, and they might not be putting that artist's name on it, the original artist, but just it feels uncomfortable to know that your work is out there. It has maybe a physical signature on the front side, maybe not, but there's no actual digital record of, okay, where did this actually come from? Like sort of like a digital fingerprint or DNA. And lastly, the artists have the possibility with the NFT to connect a smart contract to their work. So from the beginning, then artists can stipulate either by themselves, if they're working directly from their studios and selling their own work, or together with their gallerist. When my work sells further down the line, then the royalty will kick in, depending on, maybe they decide 1%, 2% royalty, and that will be automated. And there's no currently global system for that. So today in Sweden, because Sweden's very organized, there are systems that pick up on that. So if an artist's work sells on auction at one of the local auction houses, then the artist does get a royalty from that. But if their work sells in Canada or the States or somewhere in Asia, that doesn't happen. So an artist who sells a work for 10 or 20,000 at the beginning of their career here, then all of a sudden the work sells for $500,000 somewhere across the world, the artist doesn't get any benefit from that. And neither does the gallerist, which, just touching back on benefits for the gallerist, if they're involved in creating that smart contract together with the artist, have the possibility to also benefit from a royalty further on. And if you're a gallerist who spends 5 years bringing up an artist and investing so much in their development, and you invest a lot in, bringing their work to shows and showing at fairs like Market or other fairs, then they get picked up by a massive gallery who's much bigger than you are somewhere in London or New York, then it's like the saddest thing ever. You lose this artist, and then you've really invested. It's like bringing up a child, really, and then all of a sudden they're just gone. So that's another benefit for gallerists, to be able to also negotiate some kind of, together with the artist, decide, okay, what should the smart contract look like, so that gallerists can potentially benefit if the artist becomes super famous later on.
Yeah, and you touched on this just now when it comes to differences between various global regions, where, of course, we're now in the Nordic region, and here we have maybe a history of being very keen on organizing things. So does this system, this NFT, depend or require for all of the regions international to be on the same level, or how does that work if an artwork travels, so to speak?
Right. So basically, the NFTs get put in a collector's digital wallet, and then when the ownership changes, they get moved into the new owner's digital wallet. And some of the platforms that are selling digital art are using special digital wallets that are sort of connected to their platform. So they want people to only trade or buy and sell through their platform. It's a way of sort of linking people to their specific platform, which is problematic, because then if people want to buy and sell their works with another digital wallet that's not consistent with the original one, that can be problematic. It's possible, but it's kind of a pain. So what we've decided is that we're going to just have the most generic coding in our solution, so that we don't link anybody specifically to our software and solution, that people can freely trade or buy and sell with other digital wallets without it being tricky. But I think the large platforms, sometimes that's the case, is that I've heard artists complain that they had work on a platform that then they tried to transfer to a digital wallet that had another solution, and there was some a threshold there that was tricky too. It wasn't seamless. It was a little bit of a pain to deal with. So I think that's the important thing, is if everyone and it's also new, right? So we'll see how that evolves and how people come up with more generic solutions, but because it's going to have to be more of a globally seamless solution, so that it benefits. I've spoken to collectors here at the fair who say, I went to this platform and I wanted to buy something, and I didn't know how. It's hard to figure out. So we're also working on just a very, very user-friendly solution, so that people feel like, nobody wants to feel dumb. They just want to buy art, right? So it's nice to be able to actually go. It's like showing up in a store to buy something expensive, and the salespeople don't help you. You just stand there. It's like a Pretty Woman moment where you're like, I just want to buy a fabulous outfit, and nobody's helping me. But I think that's a thing that collectors are feeling. They hear NFTs. They want to start collecting NFTs, either as artworks or as, in our case, they want physical artworks, but they want to have the NFT connected, but they need some hand helping so that they get led through the process. It's all new. And I've met so many people, artists, collectors, and gallerists, who just, there's an anxiety, like, how do we just get in there? We want to be a part of this, but we don't know how. So we're really trying to work to help people just to find a nice, easy path through that, to navigate unfamiliar waters. So just so that they can get the stepping stone that they need to sort of find their way. And it's nice to collect art, but it shouldn't be difficult. It should be a quite an easy solution.
Yeah, because listening to you, I can see the potential of this technology and how it really facilitates and adds to this transparency. But I can also see the challenges, because it's a young technology, because it's new.
Yeah.
So what would you say is the next step for NFT?
I would say that another thing that I've heard so much recently is that there's an anxiety that artists who are working with physical practices are feeling anxious that they somehow need to reinvent themselves and become digital artists. So I think when all the dust settles, after all of this hype from the past few months, I'd say people are going to understand, okay, we can still keep doing what we're doing from the artist's perspective. I can still keep my practice as it is. If I want to somehow take a step into the digital world, then I can start creating digital identities for my works, which is what we're doing. If they want to start working more digitally and create digital works that are NFTs, that's an option too. But I think people just need to step back from all the craziness and just see, okay, so where is this all going to land? Because really, if it's not a sustainable solution, then it's not good for anybody. I think that the platforms that are existing that are selling digital art, and that's not what we do, but we know who they are and what they're doing, are in the most cases completely uncurated. So people are missing, people who are used to the white box and love to go into a fair like market or a beautiful gallery space, of which there are many in Stockholm. People are in unfamiliar territory. They come to a digital space that is full with anything and everything. There's nobody who's like the police at the door. So in a way, it's like a democratization, but I think people who are used to being in spaces that are highly curated are uncomfortable because you can't see the forest for the trees. You're looking for, who's the storyteller here? What is the concept here? You know, what is this exhibition about? They want that more traditional art historical line of thinking. So I think and hope that people, including us, because that's sort of on our radar as well, will be working hard to focus on digital platforms that are highly curated so that people feel like it's not such a jump, that either you're part of the traditional art world and what that brings, or you're part of the digital art world and what that's all about, that there's sort of, at the moment, a gap between the two. So I just hope those lines get more blurred and people have more flexibility, both in terms of creating art and in terms of collecting art and in terms of selling art. You know, this is a great time for gallerists who are brick and mortar galleries. I know it's like from month to month, if you don't sell, you close your doors. Like, it's an awful reality, but it's a hard world to be in. So I hope that more traditional galleries will also start to embrace technology, because it's a survival from month to month for them. So to be able to open themselves up to new technologies and bring on new collectors who are interested in, there's a lot of tech-savvy digital natives out there who are quite young and up and coming, and they're going to be the ones collecting the pieces, if they're not already today, for $1 million, $2 million in the future. So being able to offer them something and meet them in the world that they're sort of starting to define as collectors is smart for galleries as well. So I think, I don't know, did that answer the question?
Yes, I think so. And also, I'm glad, because it also sounds rather optimistic that even though, of course, today there's a lot of hype, which blurs, I think, the actual technology and how it can be used, this talk about bridging the gap between these two worlds, I think that's really what we need to focus on.
We're going in that direction. It's inevitable, so it's about finding sustainable ways of doing it in a nice way. I read a quote, and now I feel like I cannot remember the name of the artist, but he mentioned NFTs being likened to medieval tapestries, which I love this. He said, in medieval times, when the castle was pillaged and burnt down, the tapestries were the portable things that you could take with you. The paintings were not valued that highly because they weren't possible to just grab and run out the door with. So, I think the flexibility of NFTs and the practicality of being able to, in 20 years, it could be our NFTs that are, if not, in 2 years, are worth a lot more than our physical pieces. So if you have the possibility to marry them and complement our physical art pieces with a digital connection, and representation of the physical, then you're covering all your bases, right? So if the castle burns down, then you've got your tapestry under your arm and your painting goes down with the ship. I don't know, but I think it's a nice quote. I wish I could remember the name of the author.
Well, we can Google it. Thank you so much, Kirsten, for joining us, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.